Hello. So today we're going to be doing this turtle using this kind of iridescent foil. We've got this little dinosaur I did in a previous video, slash alien, as I say. Still think it looks like alien. And I'm going to be trying to kind of suspend it in this egg mold that it comes with. So it's kind of like a little baby dinosaur in an egg. So for the turtle, I'm going to be using the lime chameleon flakes from Let's Resin. But yeah, we'll cover it in more detail as I get to each thing. So let's crack on and start with the little dinosaur. Okay, so I'm just using my glue gun here. So I'm putting a little bit of this glue on a lolly stick, and then I'll stick the tail of the dinosaur kind of down onto it, which I'll then kind of put upside down into the egg, but you'll see. Now, once I've got this down, I hold it for about, I don't know, 20 seconds or something like that. I am speeding up here though, at the point where I'm holding it, just so you don't have to sit through that. And then you can kind of see then it's stuck. So the reason I chose to use my glue gun is it will be somewhat easy to just kind of, so this is obviously a temporary hold. I don't want a permanent adhesion here. So that glue gun glue should do a good job of just holding the dinosaur in place until the resin sets. And then once that's done, I can kind of, I should be able to take this off really quite easily. So I'm just gonna put the dinosaur in, work out if I'm happy with it, with the position. As it happens, I wasn't. I felt that once the egg was the right way up, the tail of the dinosaur would have been too close to the bottom of the egg, and just not giving that suspended look enough, essentially. So I kind of made this contraption where I broke up another lolly stick and kind of glued them on top of each other, so that then the dinosaur would then stick to that, and it would then be lower down in the egg. Now, this second time of sticking the dinosaur, I did speed you up quite a bit there, but I did struggle. I couldn't get it stuck at first, but eventually I got it stuck down there. So you can see that, with those extra lolly sticks now, when I've got it in the egg upside down, it's kind of going more into the egg and kind of more in the position that I want it. I'm using, in case it's not obvious, I'm using this torch, by the way, that you can keep seeing to kind of try and see through the mold a little bit better and kind of check the position of that dinosaur. So that's all in position now, and I'll go and get some resin made up. So look what happened whilst I was making the resin. The dinosaur fell off. I don't know why this second time round I really struggled. It wouldn't stick. I thought I'd got it stuck, but clearly not. So now I've got my resin made up and I'm not prepared here. So I get my glue gun again, and because I don't want to risk it coming unstuck again and also coming unstuck before the resin's cured, I glue it. I glue it. Look at that. No more dainty little drop of glue. No, no, no. At this point, I was thinking, oh, geez, I hope this does actually come off of this dinosaur easily when I need it to. So yeah, I glued that dinosaur on. Right, let's get to the next step. So the resin that I have made up here is it wasn't to fill the egg up, it's for the purposes of me dropping this dinosaur into it first. Now hear me out, right? So if you did watch the video where I actually made this dinosaur, it was video number 4, by the way. You'll have seen that. So this dinosaur was 2 pieces that you then stick together to make a 3D piece. So there is a join down the middle of that dinosaur. I've glued it, but of course there's going to be air, right? So I figured if I leave it sat in this resin, maybe it'll give that air chance to escape in this resin rather than in the resin in the egg and creating loads of bubbles. And I'm not really too sure it works that well, to be honest. I should have just sprayed it with alcohol and put it in the egg. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so I've got the resin here now for the actual egg. It is exactly the same brand, exactly the same resin as the dinosaur's currently sat in, so I'm not mixing resins here or anything like that. So I'm going to fill this up kind of about 3/4 of the way, and put the dinosaur in. The intention was to kind of do the second pour before this first pour here was completely cured. unfortunately I didn't do it in time, but we'll get to that. Okay, so the next time you see this dinosaur, this first paw will have cured enough for the second paw, but until then, in the meantime, let's move on to the turtle. So first of all, I changed my mind on the powder that I'm going to use. I changed it to this. I think it's just a Temu one, unbranded, kind of bluey green shift instead of that lime from Let's Resin. That orange thing, by the way, on the table is just an extra that I poured from the resin that I had the dinosaur dunked in, just so it didn't go to waste. And you may be wondering, why is my turtle upside down? Well, I will explain. Again, hear me out, hear me out. So, because of just the way the shape of the mold is, right, and the way that where the shell comes up to and all that kind of good stuff. So I want the fins of the turtle to be the colour that I'm pouring here, but I also want the head to be that colour, and I want the shell to be completely clear. But you can't fill the shell up completely clear without then that clear going into the head, because the shell ends up being higher than the head. I hope this is making sense. So I'm thinking, right, I will pour the head, let it cure, because then I can paint the fins up with the powder, and then I can pour the resin into the shell clear, and yeah, it'll probably make more sense once I kind of demold, and this is kind of, as I'm going, essentially. I promise though, that there's method in my madness here. There's method, I promise. Right, I'll finish pouring these extras from the extra resin, and I'll jump back on once the resin from this first pour of the dinosaur and this turtle has cured up. Okay, so I left this too long, this dinosaur too long. If you let your first pour cure too much before you pour your second cure, you're going to have a line where you're going to see the two pours. You'll see when I do demold. I went about my day and didn't get back on time. Now, you can see there's a few bubbles that have clinged to kind of around the edge of the dinosaur, but I mean, I prefer zero, but I'm not gonna worry about those. I mean, it isn't an egg, at the end of the day. There's gonna be some kind of, bubble in there, I guess. So yeah, I'm not too worried about it. What I do worry about though is, because obviously I put so much glue on this, I then cannot get it off. I cannot ping this lolly stick and the glue off my dinosaur. Now, I have to be careful as well, because if I kind of tug on this too much, I'm going to end up breaking that seal between the resin that's in there at the moment and the mold. So I just grab my heat gun and kind of just heat that glue up a little bit more. Yeah, luckily it came unstuck. So now it's ready for the second pour. So I'll go ahead and finish pouring up the egg with some more resin, and we'll move on to the turtle. Right, so I'm just using my heat gun just to melt these kind of foil pieces. It makes them kind of a little bit more iridescent, if you can tell. Once I've done them all, I'll cut them all up into tiny little strips, ready to put in the turtle shell soon. Okay, so the head's all cured up. So what I'm going to do now is, with that same powder, but I'm going to paint the powder this time rather than mix it into the resin like I did with the head. I'm going to paint the powder all over the fins, and then tidy up, make sure that there's nothing in that shell, because that shell needs to be clear. And I'll pop back once that's been done. Sorry, I just have to say as well, I just thought, I've been calling these things that I'm painting fins, but I think they're actually flippers on a turtle, not fins, not fish. Okay, I'm really going now. We'll have to finish this up. Speak to you in a minute. Okay, so I've painted up all of the flippers, tidied up the shell, so there's nothing left in the shell. Hopefully you can kind of see a little bit more. What I mean in a sense of, so now when I pour the clear for the shell, the clear, even though it can't go in the head because there's resin in there now that's set, and obviously it'll go up to the flippers, I wanted to say fins again, up to the flippers, but I've painted them, so hopefully it should be fine. So, as I mentioned before, I cut all of my little foil pieces into tiny little strips. So I'm going to add these to some resin and get that poured into the shell. Now there's going to be a few layers on this turtle. So the first layer is going to be this clear resin with the iridescent foiling that you can see me pouring now. Then there's going to be a black layer, because when you put black behind this sort of foil, it kind of makes it pop more. But again, I didn't want, if you look at the turtle from the side, I didn't want to see this really thin black layer. And again, because I've painted up, where the black will kind of be where I've painted the turtle. So from the side, I didn't want to see like a thin black layer. And then finally, the final layer will then be the same colour as the flippers and the head, where I'll mix that powder into the resin and do a final layer. I'm so sorry if I'm not explaining this very well. It'll make sense, I'm sure, once I've demolded it. I'm just not very good at explaining it. I do have a bit of spare resin after this, so I'll throw that in a spare mold. But yeah, we'll see that on demold. So I'll be back once we're ready for the black layer next. Okay, so the layer with the foiling has cured up enough now for me to go ahead and pour my very thin black layer, just purely so that foil has a kind of black backing, essentially. Now you'll see that again, it's just the shell goes up and curves around the turtle's body, so just the way gravity works, obviously, it's going to go into I keep wanting to say fins, guys, into the flippers. But again, it's okay because I've painted them. So the black can't go into the head as usual because there's that resin that I poured initially, and where the black does kind of go out onto these flippers, I've painted them. So you should only see the colour of the powder when I demold. So yeah, so I'll put you on a fast forward. I'm going to skip to then once this black layer is cured, to where it's cured enough where I then pour the final layer, which is mixing the powder in with the resin, and finally filling that mold up. So I'll be back once that's all cured up. Okay, so everything's cured up now. Now there's a lot of extras going on. I cut a lot of the footage out of me pouring most of them. I'm not gonna demold all of these little shapes. Not very exciting. They're just little extras with the drippings, and when I collect enough up, I kind of use them to fill another mold. So let's move on to the next thing. So we've got these little tiny turtles. I'm sure you've seen me do mold these before, and then the slightly bigger turtles. I don't do things like with these sorts of extras, guys. So I just find I like to kind of give kind of nice free gifts away with any orders that I get from my Etsy shop. And I've just found in the past, it's like, let's say I put certain coloured eyes in my turtles. I like to kind of match what they've ordered. And it's like, say they had a black and a red theme, and I'm like, oh, I've only got black turtles with yellow eyes. I'd like to have. So I just kind of leave them as they are. And yeah, I put them aside, and when I need them for like as a free gift or whatever, then that's when I'll kind of properly finish them off. So yeah, a lot of these extras you don't see again in my videos, because I don't do much else with them. Where I do, I'll obviously show that. So the little orca, I'll paint up the white areas, and probably turn that into a little keyring or something at some point. And then the bear molds, you've seen me demolding these so many times. Yeah, I'll probably just sand the edges down, and put them in the kind of box of sort of pick and mix for the kids when I do actual stalls. Yeah. So these are these kind of little water ripple effect starfish, which I thought would look really pretty with the with that colour that I used for the turtle in. They're so lovely. All I'll do with these is I'll stick some magnets on the back. What beautiful magnets. Okay, next are these adorable little mini vases. So they're supposed to, these are advertised, these little molds. They're advertised as light boxes and they come with kind of little tiny pixie lights, but the battery pack on for them, it's a normal size battery pack for like little pixie lights, but it's massive. You're not going to stick it on the back like on most of them. It would just pop up above. Yeah, so I think quite a lot of people use these as kind of little miniature vases instead. So I'll show what these look like in the end. I just put some little magnets on the back and I put some little faux flowers in there, and yeah, you can just stick them on your fridge or wherever. They're so cute. Okay, so this cat didn't turn out very well. I'd used a topping up item because I was just a little bit short, but it sank and you can see the top of the head. And there's quite a few micro bubbles around underneath the head. I think it was because it was so thick, the resin, by the time I poured it. So yeah, not exactly a success, this little cat. Never mind. So this little turtle is like a miniature of the big one. So with the spare resin that I had throughout the layers when I was pouring the bigger turtle, I kind of did a little side one, but obviously I didn't paint it up with that powder. Now can you see what I mean by that black layer from the side? That's what I didn't want on. I didn't want you to be able to see the black layer from the side on the big one. So yeah, okay, let's move on. Right, so onto the dinosaur egg. So I'd already sprayed my isopropyl down in there just to kind of break that suction. I was struggling to get it out. And then I'm just kind of going to wipe off the isopropyl alcohol with some kitchen roll, and then let's have a look. So first of all, I'm happy with the placement of the dinosaur. It's clearly, in my opinion, it's clearly suspended in there. There's a good gap at the bottom, and yeah, I'm really happy with the placement. Now you can see there are a few micro bubbles that have clung. I say a few, a lot, to the dinosaur itself. There's not any kind of in the wider egg. They seem to have just clung to the dinosaur. So yeah, I do wish I'd just sprayed it with some isopropyl alcohol before I put it in there. Now, what I'm trying to show here is that line where you can tell where I did the second pour. I could have kicked myself for leaving it too long. Yeah, if you pour your second pour when the resin's still kind of tacky. So in this case, it needed to be cured enough where it would have held that dinosaur in place after I took it off the stick, but still kind of tacky. And yeah, I left it too long. Hopefully it shouldn't affect the final outcome kind of once I've kind of finished doing everything to it that I want to do. But anyway, let's move on to the turtle. Now, the first thing I see is a big air pocket on the very tip of his little tail. So yeah, I've missed the very end of the tail is kind of missing, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. I mean, yeah, it's underneath the shell and it's not the worst thing in the world, to be honest. Right, so let's have a look. So there is a bit of a join there between the head and underneath the head and the rest of the body, but again, not too bad. Oh, look at it. Fancy. So yeah, I'm happy with how this has turned out. I like that I've managed to get the clear just in the shell. I've got another little air pocket there at the bottom of the shell, but I'll fill that in with some clear UV resin. That'll be really easy to sort out. But yeah, I'm glad, yeah, that I've kind of got the clear is just in the shell and everything else is kind of the kind of bluey green chameleon powder. But overall, yeah, I'm happy with how he's turned out. Those little air pockets on his shell and the one on his tail. Yeah, nothing to worry about too much. Okay, so just quickly here, I'm just pouring these little crystal molds that I've got for the dinosaur egg, because ultimately I want to turn this into a nightlight. and I figured maybe the crystals can kind of go around the edge. They look pretty cool, along with this kind of, I've got some fake moss and some greenery here, and yeah, so I'll put you on a little bit of fast forward whilst I get everything finished up, and I'll pop back once it's all done. Okay guys, so I'll just quickly show you the vases that I made up. So I stuck some rhinestones on them. This is how Michelle from Glitz and Glitter does them. I think they always look really nice. And some little fake flowers. So yeah, oh, and stuck some magnets on the back, obviously. They're all done. So with this little guy, so I just put a little bit of clear UV resin on the end of that shell where there was that air pocket. And then with the tail, what I did was I just mixed in some of the chrome powder into a bit of UV resin, cured that up. It doesn't quite look the same colour. But yeah, it's fine. I think he's lovely. So that's the turtle. So the little dinosaur in the egg. So I stuck the egg down to this nightlight and stuck all this moss around the edge. I used some UV resin to do kind of initial like gluing to stick that big plant thing at the back down. Yeah, and then I just put this kind of, I don't know, I'm just, if they're little berries or something, those little red, just so there was a pop of colour in there. And obviously I've got one of my crystals. This particular light base is colour changing. So yeah, I'm sure you can see it's kind of switching through all different colours. I've got a shot here on the turntable too of the lights off, so you can kind of see it all lit up. Stick around for the photos at the end, as always, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!